All right. This has been a scramble this morning, but hey, Evan, how you doing, man?
Doing well, doing well. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad we were able to do this again. This is technically what the third year in a row now.
Yeah, number three. It's kind of
Number
turning into
three.
a bit of a tradition.
It is, and I think we have some exciting things to talk about. But
Yeah,
first, give the people who don't know you kind of a quick spiel who you are and what you do.
yeah. My name is Evan Schneider. I'm a colorist and a DP here in LA. I mostly work on commercial, documentary, music video, some short film projects,
Hmm.
and I've been a colorist for like 10 years now.
Yeah. Wow. You're a vet.
um, yeah, but I love being on both sides of the camera. So
Hmm.
I feel like
Hmm.
my DP work strengthens my color work, and my color work strengthens my DP work. I really love being on both sides of the process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that's why
those are
that's
kind
why
of
I
my two
like
main things.
That's why I like talking to you because you're different from like what I'm used to. Like normally DPs are grip or ACs, but rarely are they a colorist and a DP, which is very unique. That's why I like having you on and kind of picking your brain about a lot of things. Granted,
Yeah.
guys, I live by his LUTs. I use his LUTs for my grading for Fujifilm. People always ask me like, "Oh, how do you color grade?" I don't color grade. I throw in your LUT and I tweak contrast, and then that's it. I don't do
Yes.
anything
Yes.
else. So yeah, I
Yeah.
always I always will recommend LUT LUTs for sure, and you have some other ones that you can kind of talk about a little bit later. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, this video I really want to get into a little bit more kind of a few advanced topics. I know we've talked about Fujifilm in the past, and a few things were kind of like surface level. I think our first one was really good too. That was really informative. A lot of people had asked questions and gained really good knowledge from that. So I appreciate you sharing what you know.
Yeah.
Um, Evan spends a lot of time tweaking, like you were just saying, shooting and then going back and tweaking, making new LUTs or tweaking his color and stuff like that. So in this video, we're going to be talking about F-Log2c, F-Log2, and a few other things around the Fujifilm system because that's what we both film on. You own the X-H2S right now, right?
Yep. XH2S and then XE4.
And the XE4. I miss my SE4. I always say that every time you bring it up.
I know. It's so good. It's a great little
Yeah,
camera.
dude, I'm surprised at how well it's holding its value too. I go on eBay and it's like going for like $1,200.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that's mostly in part that the X wait.
The most recent one's the XM5, and
Oh
then
yeah.
yeah, that's the most recent one that came out.
Yeah. What's the big point and shoot? The
The
uh
X106.
X100, yeah, X106 and
Yeah,
the X105.
yeah,
Those were in such high demand that
hmm
people started going for the XE4 that was
yeah,
in
and it
stock.
drove up the price. I think actually when it
Yeah.
first released, when I first got it, I think it was like $900. What the current price of the XM5 is.
Dang.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Fujifilm's a sleeper when it comes to value because it does. They're really good cameras for photography and for video now.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, so real quick, I just wanted to just top of my head. So it's
Yeah.
been how long have you had the XH2S? About 2 years now.
So since it was released, I bought it
So, yeah, so
like
same as
I
me then.
pre-ordered it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
2 years ago,
yeah. I think it's
two and a half.
approaching three. I think close.
Yeah. It was like, yeah, it's been a while actually.
So why did you choose Fujifilm? Why was that on your radar?
Oh man. I feel like, well, actually, so I had been a Fuji user for a while. I had the XH1,
Me too.
um, which was a very promising camera on paper, but didn't really live up to the specs, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Hmm.
Um, it was like one of the first Fuji cameras that had IBIS, which I was
Yes.
really excited about, but it was pretty much unusable for video.
Yeah.
It was just jerky and unnatural.
Yeah.
Um, and then after I had the XH1, I switched over to the XT3 and used that for a long time. And what initially drew me to Fuji cameras was really the color science, the color
Hmm.
profiles, the film simulations. I love messing with that kind of thing. Like we were talking about me being like a DP colorist.
Hmm.
Um, that's really just what I'm interested in is getting really interesting colors, really good looks, and and making the image look as good as possible. So
Right,
for
right.
me, like shooting video, but also shooting photos at the same time on the same camera was really attractive to me,
Hmm.
especially because I was using it a lot for like travel films, taking it on trips, being able to shoot really nice photos of my trips, but then also shoot stock footage and YouTube videos with the same camera was,
Yeah, yeah.
a really big priority of mine.
Yeah, and I would agree to that too. The thing that drew me to Fujifilm was mainly the colors. And it's just, I think what I'm trying to get at too is like a lot of people ask, and I'm sure you get this question too, like, oh, what camera should I get still? It's still a question for new people coming into this space. And
Yeah.
and the other question is Fujifilm actually good? And I think I'm at a point where I'm a little, I won't say annoyed, but like that question gets kind of, repetitive. And so I want to tell people it's like, it's really comes down to what you actually like and what are your
Yeah.
needs. And so I would tell you why I like Fuji, but I won't tell you why you should get it. And
Yeah.
it's just the point is now cameras are literally so good. It's just a personal preference. And if
Yeah.
you care about color, if you care about some of the newer things that Fujifilm is introducing, like with the X-H2S, you have internal ProRes, CFast, Express Type B cards. Like it's pretty robust of what they've put in these cameras now. And if you
Yeah.
care about those things, then you should look at it. And if you can rent it, rent it. So,
Yeah. Totally.
yeah. So, yeah, for us, we kind of grandfather ourselves into it. We owned Fujifilm cameras before, and then now we're riding the train of video that they introduced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a challenge to convince people to switch to Fuji because for some reason, for a lot of people, it feels risky
Yeah. Yeah. For
because it
whatever reason.
feels, yeah, I guess, I don't know, their brand, like it feels really niche. So it feels like you're
Mm-hmm.
fully committing when you choose Fuji.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but everyone who I've convinced to go Fuji has never been disappointed. It
Yeah.
just is like a process to get them to, get
It's a
over that.
process. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, but
And do
yeah,
you use your Fujifilm cameras for paid work?
yeah. Yeah, I use the XH2S for a lot of commercial and documentary projects.
Mm-hmm.
I have a full rig out for it. Like a lot of times I'm shooting on kind of smaller sets where I may have a first AC or maybe it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
And um, like a huge reason I oftentimes choose the Fuji over my Red. I have a Red Epic Dragon that I use for like bigger commercial stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I choose the Fuji because of the autofocus, honestly.
Mm.
Not having to worry about pulling focus, and like there were some projects last year that I shot where we wanted like very tight, intimate kind of interview shots of people, but we
Mm-hmm.
shot them straight on of them looking straight into the lens.
Got
And
you.
so, and it was like basically the frame was like their face.
Mm-hmm.
And we shot it at like f1.8. So it would have been a first AC's nightmare to try
Nightmares
to
like
keep the eyes in focus.
sweat.
Yeah, you pull focus now.
I do,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so like it would have been a nightmare, and honestly, kind of impossible. Like I know you can argue like there's the human touch
Mm-hmm,
of someone
mm-hmm.
pulling focus compared to autofocus, but like watching the Fuji lock on to the eye and just like
Yeah,
hold it the entire interview was
yeah.
so satisfying to me. I'm kind of a focus, like I get obsessed with things being in focus.
As you
It
should.
drives me nuts when things aren't.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, the autofocus really is a big draw to me to use the Fuji, plus F-Log2 and now F-Log2c as well.
Yeah,
They're getting more and more professional. Um, the body is still a mirrorless style body,
yeah,
which
yeah.
that's looking to change in the future. But
Eterna.
yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be interesting.
Bro, I can't wait either. But cool, yeah, and that's very actually interesting because I know we've had I don't know how closely you were following the whole kind of debacle of the autofocus from the
Yeah,
few updates that Fujifilm had, and the community was kind of
hmm
like up in arms with pitchforks and torches and stuff.
yeah. People
I
saying don't
was
update.
Yeah, yeah. My camera, I did update to one of them, and it did change the nature of it, and I wasn't too happy with it. But I kind of just like roll with the punches. But I understand those who are using this camera for like weddings and events, and they want to rely on the autofocus. Like I totally understand that was a pain point for them.
Yeah.
Fujifilm and Fujifilm corrected it, so it feels like it's back where it was, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, I'm on the XS20, and I have the Viltrox 13 mil at f1.4 right now. So like this
Hmm.
is just a standard thing, and it's locking on. I can see it locking on to me right now. So
Yeah.
again, I always continue to hope that Fujifilm will improve it, because it shouldn't matter if autofocus matters to a lot of people, and I hope they introduce better photo lenses that are tailored to video, so better motors, quieter
Yeah.
motors. That
Yeah.
improvement was always going to make it better, because everybody's going to compare Fujifilm to Sony and Canon
Definitely.
and what they have,
Yeah.
because they're the juggernauts. We understand that. We get that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
um so one of the before we get into like F-Log2 and F-Log in color, this may be about color and stuff. This still relates to the image of Fujifilm, and I get this
Yeah.
question often too. How do you solve this? The question is, how do you fix internal over sharpening in F-Log2, or just with Fujifilm in general? Do you feel the image is too sharp? What do you do to kind of combat that, either from lensing or how you edit it? What's your process, and what have you noticed?
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing is like it's a very, very sharp camera. Some
Mm-hmm.
projects that I shoot, I actually want the
You want
sharpness.
it,
Like
yeah,
it's something
yeah.
that I like.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I reach for the Fuji to actually have the sharpness
Mm-hmm.
because I don't necessarily feel like it's a unnatural sharpness. It's just like tack sharp kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
Like it doesn't feel
detailed. It's
over
detailed.
processed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But on the projects where I want a kind of dirtier image, um, I guess there's a few different things I tried depending on the project. Shooting with a mist filter definitely
Yeah.
is an option. Like one of my favorite combos on the XH2S is the Sigma 18 to 35
Yeah,
1.8.
that's your go-to.
Yeah, that is my go-to. um, I can't help it. I just love it. So, and that's
Mm-hmm.
also known for being a really sharp lens. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of my personal style is being sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you stick a like 5% Cinebloom from
Mm-hmm.
Moment, or I really like the Black Pro Mist by Tiffin.
Yeah, Glimmer Glass is beautiful. I love Glimmer Glass.
Yeah, I've never actually tried that before, but I've been
Dude,
curious about
dude,
it.
you should try Glimmer Glass. It's
Yeah,
quite nice. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So those definitely reduce the sharpness of the image, but maintain that same detail.
Mm-hmm.
And then honestly, you can get a long ways with just a tiny little blur in DaVinci Resolve.
Mm.
Um, so like just adding a little bit of blur, and if you want like a film emulation, oftentimes when I'm adding grain to an image, it has a perceived effect of being sharper actually when you add grain.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so oftentimes like it's pretty common practice for colorists to add a digital blur when you add grain anyways,
Mm.
to soften the image. So like just using the basic blur tool in Resolve,
Yeah,
blurring it a tiny bit to soften those edges, um, and then adding grain on top can
yeah.
get you a really good look. And it's always easier to blur an image than to sharpen it. So
Mm.
I would rather start with a clean, sharp image um, and then you know, uh,
Pull it back later, or
pull it back.
dirty it up
Yeah,
later. Yeah, and I would agree.
exactly.
That's kind of the process too with me. The easiest way to kind of come back sharpness is what I tell people is you can start with lensing and filters and other
Yeah,
and other optical accessories. The
yeah,
tuners are another one. I really enjoy using
yeah.
the tuners.
Those
Trying
are
to use
great.
them more this year, yeah, but that's really one way to kind of really go the opposite way and dirty up that image.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. Some people want
yeah,
that film look, so softer. So you're looking for halations, you're looking for those details. What's nice
yep,
about shooting an F-Log is that you have a higher base ISO, so you do introduce a little bit more noise. But the noise in
yep,
the Fujifilm is really pleasing. It's a nice noise pattern. It doesn't feel artificial. It feels a little bit more organic, as we like to say.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of play that to your advantage if you are, doing it. But it all just
Yeah.
depends how much time you're spending. Some people like a quick fix, but if you're dialing your image, you're going to go through that editing process, and you just got to massage it so you can find the sweet spot that you want.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say it definitely starts with lenses. Whatever, if you put a sharp lens in front of the sensor, it's going to feel detailed. If you put a vintage, Helios or Yena or anything like that, you're going to get less detail. So it really just depends from there, and go with that way,
Yeah.
work from that way.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Cool. So, moment of truth. If real quick, if you haven't seen or followed Evan's YouTube channel, I'll make sure it's in the description below. He's already done a really good video about the F-Log2, the overview, the comparison between two. So a lot of this is going to be kind of regurgitated from that. But
Yeah.
I definitely want to just kind of talk through it because I've been using it more now. I use it now in my GFX 102 for all the video content I'm making on my channel. And then now I'm trying to get it on, I have some projects happening this month and in March. So I'm glad they introduced F-Log2, or again, it tells me that Fujifilm cares about where they're kind of moving towards for video.
Yeah.
Color was a big one, and that's what they kind of hang their hat on.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's going to be interesting, because one thing I ran into with F-Log2 and the X-H2 is when there's this really grand dynamic range, I can see the highlights get really kind of cut off or muddy. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
ever noticed that, but I kind of pointed out in one of my videos where I'm on the beach and the sun's kind of coming in. I'm exposed, but I notice that it just kind of it gets lost, and it feels like what's that feature in the camera? The DR.
Oh,
It's
the
like 100, 200, and
DR
400.
priority. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of just tries to roll it off, but it's a little
Yeah.
aggressive.
Yeah.
That's
And it
what
tries
I
to recover it a little bit too.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
camera, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looked like in F-Log2. But now, even though F-Log2c doesn't really affect the dynamic range, the color fidelity is a lot better.
Right.
And it because you have a larger gamut. Like, what's the color space now that F-Log2 is in?
So it's called F gamut C. So
F gamut C.
F-Log2c denotes F-Log2 gamma and then F gamut C color space. So yeah, so F-Log2 shoots in F-Log2 gamma and Rec 2020 color space.
Mm,
So the only difference between the two is the color space that it's recording, and F gamut C is much larger of a color space than Rec 2020.
mm,
So what that means is you're going to get better color accuracy,
yeah,
less chance of clipping more saturated colors, and just kind of more flexibility in post, especially going into a world of like HDR mastering and wider color spaces. It's nice to have that wiggle room.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's really noticeable in skin. I just did a quick test for myself. I haven't shared any of my tests out yet because I feel like I want to take my time with putting anything out. That's why I'm talking to you first too. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what are these things I need to look out for? But
Yeah.
in my skin, I notice it feels more, it feels thicker. I guess you can say it feels like it's
Denser.
dense. Yeah, it's dense. Yeah, it's like, oh, I can really adjust it and it doesn't fall apart, which is nice to
Yeah. Yeah.
see.
Yeah. You
Um,
see I think that's a result of kind of the accuracy of the wider color gamut because it's
mhm,
capturing more of the nuances
mhm.
in skin tones, especially. But then also it could be also the conversion LUT that you're using where it's doing some sort of different transform.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, the conversion lead is yours.
Oh, well, yeah, there you go.
That's what I'm using. um,
Nice.
not a shameless plug. Is go use his LUTs. They're fantastic. um,
Oh man, yeah,
and so again, this is really encouraging for in light of what they're going to bring to the market with the GFX Eterna.
yeah,
Um, I'm hoping there's more details coming with that very soon because there's still a lot of question marks with that camera. But color, you can see that they're trying to adjust the color because they're really trying to make this a camera that filmmakers, on all levels to pick up and use as an alternative from what Blackmagic's doing with their newer full frame cameras and
Mm-hmm.
trying to compete with like the Raptor. Um, what's the larger Raptor that's out there now?
The V Raptor.
The V Raptor. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're positioning themselves in a really interesting spot in the market with
Mm-hmm.
the Eterna.
Yeah, yeah. Their I think their hope is the draw of this larger sensor is going to bring in interest and color. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because right now, as we know, they aren't really. It's the same sensors as the GFX 102 currently, and I know some people express some concerns with that. I have some concerns with that too.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what would it look like if it was a 10-bit, meaning a large format sensor, right? 12-bit versus 10-bit. I mean,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, I'm not really again hung up on dynamic range. I think it's good enough because
Yeah.
this camera is going to be in the commercial and narrative setting, so you're going to have control over your lighting anyway.
Right.
For the most
Do you
part,
know
you
how
can really
much?
dial this. Hmm.
Oh, sorry. Do you know how much dynamic range the GFX2 has?
I believe Cine D did their test for it. I think it was hovering around 12.5. I think it's a lot less than the XH2S in F-Log2. Um,
Oh, it's less.
it's a little less, yeah. I believe it's a
Oh,
little less.
interesting.
Let me fact check that
Yeah, we
real
should look that up.
fast.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't
um,
mean to.
no, you're good. You said Cine D GFX 102. We're gonna do this live and right now. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, rolling
And we
shutter.
should
Everybody.
compare it with like the Alexa 35. Like, what is how much
Mm-hmm.
dynamic range does that have?
Mm-hmm.
Like 16
So
stops or something?
16, yes, 16 stops. So it says right here that um, I'll just read it. F-Log2 in 4K with D range on using 10-bit 422 ProRes HQ at native ISO 800 yields a solid 13 stops above the noise floor.
Okay,
Yeah. And
that's
I
pretty
think that
good.
pans out. That's pretty good. That's pretty solid for such a large sensor. Um,
Yeah,
that's not an Airy or even Blackmagic's 17K. What is that rated at? Is it still the
I
13
don't
that they
know.
say?
I'm
Let's
not
see.
sure.
Let's look at that real quick. Cine D. It's so funny. Cine D and Cine Dailies. There's that.
Yeah, you guys are close.
Close. What is it called? Black Magic. Is it a Ursa?
Ursa.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's the
Ursa
Ursa.
17K dynamic range. Oh, that says 16 stops.
Oh, wow.
Now wait, let me see if it's. I don't think they did the test yet, but
Theoretically,
Black Magic is claiming 16 stops of dynamic range because they do have a
that's
newer
pretty crazy.
sensor. That is pretty
Right.
crazy. So that's literally up there with
Yeah.
um, the Alexa 65 and the 35, which just has
Dang.
17, I believe. Yeah. So
Maybe I should get a Ursa 17K.
bro. I'm looking at today. They just announced right now. Today is what, January 30th. Today's the
30th. Yeah.
30th. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just announced the cheaper version, which is the same camera but a lower priced of the 12K large format Ursa.
Oh, yeah. I saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which
It's
is
like
great.
$6,000.
At least $7,000 total. Yeah, after taxes
Yeah.
and stuff. But
Yeah.
talk about a slap in Ari's face with their announcement just 2 days ago. Did you hear what they
Yeah.
did?
Yeah. They made it like a subscription for different features.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of people were in my comments saying, they did this before and they're used to it. It is a cheaper option, but
Right.
it's
Right.
nickel and diming, and I think that cheapens. It's funny, they don't want to feel cheap. Obviously, they don't want to go the cheap route, but
Yeah.
putting people on a subscription base it's not the move for me. Anyway, that's
Yeah. We're all subscriptioned out. So the
yeah,
last thing
man.
anybody wants is another subscription. But
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, most of the people who own those are like rental houses, right?
Yeah, for the most part, I know. I only know one person who owns two 35s. And I'm like, dang, dude, that's a big
Wow.
loan. That's a
Not
big
one, but
loan.
two.
Two. Two. Yeah, he uses
Dang.
them for ESPN, and so he
That's
gets the
sick.
work out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Makes
man.
sense.
Yeah. So dynamic range
That
with
was a
the
tangent.
no, yeah, it's a good tangent. It's a good tangent. It's
Yeah.
all relative related to
Yeah.
this.
Definitely.
Um, the GFX, yeah, it's one of their exciting cameras that Fujifilm has released in recent years, and yeah, I'm very excited to see what's next, what else they're going to reveal about the camera.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so much to say about it.
So, sorry, one more question about the
Yeah, go for
sensor.
it.
Is
Mm-hmm.
it in the Eterna? Is it the same sensor as
That's
the
that.
GFX 102, or will
That's
it
what
be
they're
a new
that's
sensor?
what they that's what they're saying. It's going to be the same 102 megapixel sensor in the GFX Eterna.
Okay.
Um, now, yeah, I I like to me it's like this is not a photo camera, so why force the
Yes.
102 megapixels in there? You already have a 50 megapixel large format sensor,
Yeah.
so I would rather at least put that one in there,
Yeah.
beef up the processing speeds to have maybe higher frame rates, and well, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
I won't
and
say
like
high frame. Mhm.
readout speeds too.
Yeah, readout speeds, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the current readout speed, I believe there's pixel bending with the 4K or over. To be honest, I'm not keen to that really, but
Hmm.
for me in 4K, and they did the test too. Cine D did the test. Is around 15 milliseconds in 4K in the GF mode, and that's comparable. That's really good for a large sensor that size.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would rather see that be improved with the Eterna versus it having 102 megapixels,
Yeah.
because it's just really no benefit as a video camera with all those megapixels, especially if you
Yes.
don't have access to them.
I
Um,
totally agree. Yeah.
yeah, like make it smaller, have larger photo sites to get better low light quality, then you're
Yeah.
rocking from there. Yeah,
Yeah. Even like try to get global shutter or something like that, Like,
bro, if they did a global shutter large format sensor, that
well,
would
even a
be
global shutter medium format or like I don't know. I'm still well, plus the lens mount is going to be
it's a G mount.
GFX.
Yeah, it's a GFX.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So like that's the other kind of weird part is not many people are used to shooting on medium format for video with such a
So
large
yeah, and I
uh
think what's nice about it because so in the GFX you have GF mode, which is the full width of the sensor, not the height.
mhm,
And then you have Premista mode, which is VistaVision. So there's a
right.
ton of VistaVision lenses out there already,
Right.
and you can use
Yeah.
them. So like DZO, Nisi,
Yeah.
those brands already make those types of lenses. So you have that coverage, which is great.
Right.
Um, so you all you had to do is put on that G mount to PL adapter, and then
And then
you're
you're good to
good.
go.
You're good to go. You're good with lenses. Was interesting. It looks like they are introducing that newer zoom lens that's G mount only, and then
Mhm.
maybe Fujifilm should make their own cinema lenses. I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
they have the technology.
Yeah. That would be so sick.
Their own prime set would be nice,
Yeah.
coupled with that lens, but with
Mhm.
that sensor.
Mhm.
So it's not as scary as it might seem because it is larger. There are options out there to cover it. You can go vintage. The Mamiya 645 lenses cover it just fine
Mhm.
because it's technically larger. It has a larger image circle.
Mhm.
So you can go different routes with it. I'm exploring it. That's what's exciting for me about this camera is the lens possibilities and the
Mhm.
looks that you can get with this because it does pull that subject out a little bit uh, differently than a full frame would,
Totally.
based on
Yeah.
the factors of like field of view and compression and all that stuff. Is a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. You see, I'm really passionate about this. I can keep talking about the GFX.
No, I love it. And I mean,
Yeah.
Fuji's going that direction. Like, I love seeing them, like, bringing it back to F-Log2c. I love
Mm-hmm.
seeing them introduce better color science, developing their own color gamut instead of just using Rec 2020 primaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Seeing them do that tells me that they're focusing on the professional video market,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they want to make cameras that filmmakers want to use.
Yeah.
Um, like I even see it as like competition to like the FX6,
Yeah.
FX3,
Mm-hmm.
the box style, the Pixis, Blackmagic,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Like they're trying to compete. The Komodo, um, yeah, where you can rig it out a lot easier. Still feels
Yeah.
weird walking up to set with like an XH2S. I kind of have to hide it in like a bunch of rigging to make people take me seriously.
Yeah, yeah. You just
And
need
they're
to
like,
get
"What
a
is
you
that?"
need to get a cine back. Have you seen the cine back from
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's actually I have not taken out my camera yet, and it does make a world of a difference of how the weight, how you rig it, the power options.
Yeah.
It's the cinema camera I think Fujifilm should make next. They need to
Hmm.
put this sensor in a proper body because it's a fantastic sensor, especially now with
Hmm.
F-Log2c and some
Yeah.
other things they need to add. But I don't know. The
Yeah.
priorities are kind of all over the place, but we'll see what happens this year.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Going back a little bit to color.
Yeah.
So with F-Log2c, what is the process in DaVinci Resolve? I mean, obviously we don't have like screen share or anything like that, but if you kind of, if you kind
Yeah.
of off the top of your head, kind of just walk us through your way of doing things, and then I could probably put up some visuals a little bit later. But yeah,
Okay.
F-Log2c, someone diving into it, put it into DaVinci Resolve. What's the first thing you do?
So, if anybody from Blackmagic is watching this, please add
We
F-Log2c.
we did this
Please.
before. We
Yes.
said this last time when they didn't have F-Log2 in DaVinci
Yes.
Resolve.
And it took them like a year, maybe
Yeah,
over a year, to add
yeah,
F-Log2 support.
yeah.
Um, yes, please add F-Log2c. All they have to add is F-Gamut-C color space. They
That's it.
already have F-Log2. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I do in DaVinci Resolve. You can either use a LUT to transform F-Log2c to Rec 709. Fuji has a free LUT on their website to convert it. They
Mm-hmm.
have different options too. They have F-Log2c, F-Gamut-C to Rec 709, and then they have a Eterna version,
Yeah.
and then a wide DR, and then a bleach bypass, which is terrible. But and then they also have just a color space transform LUT from F-Gamut-C to Rec 709 with no gamma adjustment.
Okay.
Um, so
Sorry, real quick. What does gamma adjustment mean? Like, what is that? What are you referring to?
so gamma, I'm referring to the curve, the log curve.
Mm-hmm.
So F-Log2 is a gamma log curve. F-Log is a log curve. S-Log3, all of those. So you're converting that log curve to Rec 709, which is, well, Rec 709 is a color space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, BT 1886 is a gamma or gamma 2.4,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, where you're converting how the camera is encoding to how the display is encoding. So the
Mm-hmm.
camera is taking seen linear light, encoding it into a log curve for efficiency and to preserve dynamic range.
Okay.
And then you have to convert that log curve into a display profile
Mm-hmm.
so that you can view it properly. Because if you don't, that's where it looks, it looks like a log image. It's
Mm-hmm.
flat,
Mm-hmm.
desaturated, which isn't a mistake. It's not meant to be viewed like that. But in the video world right now, it's a very manual process to convert that image to a display image. You can use Fuji's LUTs. You can use my LUTs to convert it, which gives you more options in terms of creative looks and styles.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also use a color space transform in Resolve. So if you're using a color space transform, you would drop that on your footage on a new node. You would set it to F-Log2 input gamma. And then since they do not support F-Gamut-C yet for the input color space, you kind of have to use a workaround. Um, I've found that using RE wide gamut 3
Hmm.
is a kind of close enough color space um,
To get you in the ballpark.
to get you in the ballpark. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not going to make your colors look like RE. It's just a close, it has close color primary coordinates to F gamut C.
Got you.
So you're just getting as close as possible and it won't be as accurate. Um, if you're working in a color managed workflow where DaVinci Resolve is doing all of that itself under the hood, you would definitely want to tag your footage as F-Log2 and then RA wide gamut 3.
Hmm.
You can play with other input color spaces too, but that's what I would use. If
Got
you
you.
want the biggest accuracy, you can use a CST, a color space transform, to convert from F-Log2 to Rec 709 gamma,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could use the Fuji F gamut C to Rec 709 color space LUT,
Mm-hmm.
and you could use those in tandem,
Interesting.
um, which is a little bit clunkier, but like the Fuji LUTs and my LUTs do both of those in the same LUT. So it's converting the F-Log2 gamma and the F gamut C color space to Rec 709 gamma 2.4. So it's doing all of that in one step.
Gotcha.
Um, and then you would do your basic corrections in a node before the color space transform, and then you can make secondary adjustments in a node after the color space transform, where you can apply creative look, um, tweak the image to make it, look how you want it to look.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so that's kind
Yes.
of basic
See,
workflow.
this is why DaVinci Resolve needs to get this update.
Yeah.
But hey, those are good workarounds because I wouldn't have figured that out. So that's why I had to ask for myself, really. And I know we went ahead to that whole process, but like, how do you set up DaVinci Resolve to, like, in terms of, like, you can choose the timeline gamma profile, like all of that, like what how would you set that up and then get into the color grade, even though you don't have to explain the color grade like you just did. How do you set up a
Oh, right.
timeline to receive what you're about to do?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So, um, if you're using CSTs or LUTs, you would set up your project to be in DaVinci YRGB, and then you would set your timeline color space to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, and then you would set your output color space to be same as timeline. Um, if you're on a Mac and you want to use the Rec 709A workflow, which basically makes it so that what you're seeing in the viewer in Resolve matches what QuickTime will show you when you export it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can set it to DaVinci YRGB mode and then set your timeline color space to Rec 709A and then set your output to same as timeline. If you're doing that and you're on a Mac, you also want to go into the Resolve preferences, and under general, you want to make sure that use Mac display color profiles is checked.
Mm.
Um, and that will ensure that, yeah, your viewer matches your export. Um, and then if you want to use a color managed mode, which basically means Resolve will do it automatically, you can set it to DaVinci YRGB color managed. And then from there, I would set it to, I'm pretty sure it's custom, and then set it to DaVinci wide gamut RGB timeline color space. And then your output color space would also be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 or Rec 709A, whatever you want, or 2.2,
Dude,
whatever your
I mean,
preference is.
I love that you can just rip off the top of your head and be like, yeah, it's just da, 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 da. That's how you do it.
Yeah, I've set up a lot of projects, and
Yeah, yeah.
I work in all different workflows. Like it
Mm-hmm.
really depends on the project for me. Some projects I'm
Mm-hmm.
working in DaVinci YRGB, doing it all manually.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm working in a color managed workflow. Um, it depends on the project. It depends on how much time I have. Depends on what footage is in there, what the end goal is, and the look. So yeah, I recommend like playing around with all those settings if you have time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not going to mess anything up. You can always revert it.
Yeah.
But it's really good to have a good understanding of how all of those settings work together. The CST is basically a way to apply the color management settings from that project settings panel in your node structure where you want it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want Resolve to do it where it wants to do it, which it does it in the proper order, but if you want control over that, then working in DaVinci YRGB mode and then using CSTs, you will get the same results. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
different organization and
Got you.
processing pipeline.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely rewatch this.
Yeah, let me know
my
if you have any
my
questions.
my process is so simple.
I mean, the simpler the better. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I always say. Simple is better. If you're doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff just to make it complicated, it's going to get worse. And
Yeah, and you
I
get
think,
frustrated. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And like you're spending more time. Like, color grading is all about simplicity. If I can do
Mm-hmm.
something in one step, then I'm not going to do it in 5 steps just to be fancy, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it saves time, it saves confusion, and the image will benefit. The simpler it is, the better it is.
100%. 100%. So, what LUTs are you working on now?
So, I'm working on a lot right now, actually. I've been shooting with the Panasonic S9 for a while. Um, I've had it for a long time, but I'm working on Panasonic Vlog and Vlog L LUTs right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also working on Blackmagic film LUTs. So right now I have a Pocket 6K Pro right here, um, with my trusty 18 to 35.
Of course.
Blackmagic Film Gen 4 / Gen 5 LUTs, and then Panasonic Vlog. And then I think next in the pipeline is going to be Red IPP2 and RE Log C3, and then maybe Log C4. Um, yeah, I'm trying to cover every manufacturer. So
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, um, so and then I'll probably get to like the lesser popular ones. I would love to make LUTs for the slow mo cameras.
Free Fly Ember. I really want a Free Fly Ember.
That camera's sick. That looks like a lot of fun.
Such a fun camera.
Yeah, that would be so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a big process. I profiled sensors with test
Mm.
charts, and I shoot a bunch of test footage in a bunch of different scenarios. I study the image. I look at the white papers. There's you want to make sure that you're preserving middle gray, for instance. You want to make sure that you're targeting the right white point and black point, the right colors. And then I make different variations of the LUTs too. Like, there's a version where it's like natural colors, and then there's a version where it's like targeting accuracy, which has less of a creative style, but it's very accurate based on test charts. So yeah, it's a process of like learning, understanding. It's also a process of like learning menus and stuff. I mean, I have to say the Blackmagic 6K Pro or Blackmagic cameras have the best menus by far. Like,
100%. If
I
I could put
can't
that in every
believe.
camera,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
like every time I use it, I'm shocked at how simple they make it
Mm-hmm.
and how it's not lacking any functionality. It's just
No,
simple. And it
yeah,
informs how you use the camera too.
yeah.
It affects your experience,
That's
and I
that's
think it
my
affects your
hope
shooting
is.
style.
I hope that the Eterna doesn't have the same menu system as what current cameras do. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
used to it, but like they need to refine that too. The
Yeah.
operate because they have two sides. They have two operating sides, which is
Mm-hmm.
interesting. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, that needs to be streamlined, simplified, get to the menus quickly. Like they have to treat this as a proper production camera. Think
Yeah.
about the Venice, think about Blackmagic, think about all those cameras that are already doing it. Don't reinvent the
Yeah.
wheel. Get it right. This is a big camera
Absolutely.
for the company. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree
Absolutely.
with you what you're saying. Yeah.
The whole industry needs to follow suit. I mean, Red is pretty good. Like, their menus are decent. RE is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Blackmagic menus are just
Perfect.
so perfect.
It's perfect to be honest.
Yeah.
There isn't a
Amazing.
perfect camera, but there is a perfect menu.
Yep, and it's black magic.
It's black magic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Cool,
so
man.
that's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
And then I'm
And
always looking to improve current LUT packs. Like I updated the F-Log LUTs to
yeah.
F-Log2c.
Yep. Yep.
That was a free update to everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
if any of the LUT packs need updating in the future, I always release those as a free update to anybody who purchased. So yeah,
Yep. Yep. Awesome, dude. And you can find your LUTs at lutco. Wait, is it just
it's
lutco.com?
lutco.co or
Okay.
lutcompany.com. Yeah,
Got you. Got you. Got you. Got you.
yeah,
Sweet. Dude, I
yeah.
appreciate you having you on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on my channel.
Man, I wish you two had a collaboration feature where you can both watch, like viewers can watch this video on both channels at the same
I
time.
know that would be that'd be amazing. But
Shared views would be awesome.
that would be cool.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, dude, man. Best of luck to your next ventures and all the projects you have coming down your pipeline. I'm excited to see, and I always enjoy, seeing what you make out there, man.
Thank you, man. Likewise.
Cool.